Welcome back, audience. Hope you're doing good. In this video, I just want to get a little real. So, we talked about the 0 point, the freedom, the in betweenness as a solution to any kind of distortion or suffering in your consciousness, right? And so that's where it starts, that's where it begins. Once you discover it, you may milk it. A lot of people end up milking that stuff, and that's cool. Uh, because it really is awesome. And as I said before, there might be like a lot of process at the beginning until you get to the point where you're like just, you know, that hobby of feeling the essence, which is in between the attention and awareness, uh, becomes like a delicious pastime anywhere you are, whatever you do. And sometimes, yeah, it might be a little bit more. You will need some tuning and find that space in between that attention and awareness because you may become attentive of something that is kind of unpleasant and stuff like that. So, you know, that's the gist of it. And that's pretty much like the, the first joystick of life. It's that tuning in between the attention and awareness continuously for you to remain in that state of awesomeness. But life, it keeps going on, right? And you may notice things around you start changing drastically. Sometimes, it may appear like, oh, everything is kind of falling apart, or sometimes it's like, well, just about as you thought that there's some stability, it changes in changes into something else. So that may happen, and there might be other challenges that are taking place in response to you deciding to live free. And this is what I want to talk about today. I want to talk about and address those challenges that arise in response to you living in that state of freedom. Because everything almost like will may try to take you out of your throne. And sometimes it may seem that you kind of have to sacrifice your throne for something outside of you. And I'm here to say that no, you don't have to do this. That that state is has the highest priority in your life, and whatever is in the way of it, you have to alchemize it and set boundaries. So after this state, the next important thing is because once you get the relationship with the source, which is actually a relationship between power and love, the true love and true power, or the truth, if you want to use that word. Bliss, that feeling of bliss, is the truth. And people sometimes ask, like, well, is there like an absolute truth? It's not a logical mental concept. It is a state of consciousness. It is a feeling. That is an absolute truth. It is everything organizing principle that feels like bliss, and you experience it as bliss. That's the truth. And why is it the truth? Because everything that stems from there is going to be based on wisdom, is going to be based on that feeling. The emotions are going to come from that feeling, and the thoughts that are going to come from that feeling is going to create something that is organized in your reality. It makes the moves that um, that your lower mind, your logics cannot make. Another way is logos and eros. These are the primordial energies. And so that's, you take care of the first relationship that you have to take care of, which is in between those two energies. And then um, things around you may start changing. The next would be to still have a relationships with other people, but in a different and a healthy way, not in a dysfunctional way. The point of it all is that you got to maintain that resonance uh, when you're interacting with other people. And so there's going to be a two types of energies coming at you. One is that resonating, and so you can enjoy and play that type of connection, and another one that is catalyzing, and that is may uh, elicit like some more of the alchemical process that you have to go through. It's either a resonant or catalyzing. Okay, but what I'm trying to say is that upon discovering that peace bliss state, um, you may not want to deal with people at all, and and fair enough, like if you don't want it, that's all good. You earn the right to sit in that state and enjoy it as much as you can, deal with the challenges that are related to the energies in your uh, basically as you go through time, that they're not really related to people, they're just energies. You can work with that and just be super peaceful and blissful and live a very simple life with the minimal interaction with people. You can do that, no problems. But the fully healthy and functional um, life is that this obviously is more engaged in life, and um, relationships like are important for you to enjoy life fully. And so those have to correspond to, of course, like your other half, family, and then friends. That's usually how everything is structured, right? You can say, well, there are relatives, but they're really more in a you know friend zone, so to speak, because there are certain types of relationships that each one correspond to these energies, to these primordial energies. And so there is a healthy connection, which is resonant, and unhealthy, which is catalytic. For example, um, power relationship to love, um, that is like a husband and a wife. Power relationship to innocence, that is like a father and a daughter. Love relationship to innocence, that's like a mother and a daughter. Love relationship to confidence, that's like a mother and a daughter. Power relationship to confidence, that's like a father and a son. Okay, these family relationships, they are intrinsic part of consciousness, and you are playing one role or the other. And so you you want to play the role that you're meant to be playing. If you're a man, you tend to be more leaning towards power and confidence. But and this allows you to stay very close to the innocence and love. But you're playing the role that you must play. Um, Now, to separate the confidence and power, which is not really the same. The power is that, like I said, that bliss energy, primordial energy that you earn through alchemizing. You to get that bliss energy, and a lot of insights come from that energy that are wise, wisdom, right? Wisdom. That's this fatherly energy. Me and my father are one, as Jesus said. And there is confidence, which is this, uh, you know, sun, I suppose, energy, right? The confidence would be the skills that you may acquire, um, and it may be to do with like it is that type of experience guiding um, capacity, right? But it has to be like what kind of game you're playing, right? And so whether it's martial arts, whether it's business or whatever, it's a game. And so if you're learning and you're skilled at it, and you have a good attitude and you have healthy relationships, you're going to have confidence in accomplishing all these tasks. But that's the capacity of your um, that's the capacity of your soul, I suppose, not the ultimate absolute truth, which is power. And of course, like those four roles, uh, as you can see, they connect, and so you can count how many connections there are, right? And so all of these connections are going to be very important in your life. And if you have all of these connections healthy, and like I said, it doesn't have to be like just blood family, not not everyone, I suppose, are lucky or just turn out to be that they have a good relationship um, with their blood family. Usually it's a lot of catalyzing relationships, and so there's a lot of lessons to learn there, but there's not a lot of resonance going on. That's what's usually going on. But and that's all right, because there's as you catalyze those things, as you no longer are being triggered by it, your reality is going to change, and there's someone else going to play that role in your life. Okay. It just happens like that, and then you can recognize, okay, this people or this person seems to play that role of a family member, and and uh, and if there's a resonance, then that's the point. Then you have a good, really good and nice connected relationship that serves a purpose in resonance, which is enjoying and playing the game of life, whatever that may be, whatever game you're playing. Okay. So and then of course, confidence relationship to confidence as brotherhood, confidence relationship to innocence, that's like a brother sister type of relationship. And then innocence to innocence, that's like a sister relationship, right? So we named it, and I haven't counted how many of them are, but these are family relationships. These are all family connection relationships, and they're part of intrinsic consciousness. This is why they're so important, that you want to have them all healthy. But like I said, it may not be with your blood family, but as long as you have those people that play these roles that are necessary to play in your life, and you play yours, and you are connected on a resonant level, you're gonna have a good time. Gonna have a good time. Okay. Now, I want to talk a little more about the challenges that it may arise. Um, Now, for every energy type that I just described, this power, love, innocent confidence, there is a dark side of it. There's a dark side of it. And which you can be also in relationship with for the purpose to catalyze it. You may say, what is the point of me being in relationship with somebody who is, um, uh, problematic, and cause also is for that fact to catalyze that. Okay. Now, um, there is this, obviously, um, the figure that plays the role of power, but it's not really a power, it's a lie or a tyrant energy, which is is not a benevolent father. It's a tyrannical father energy, and it's a corrupt energy. And that energy will have a certain type of relationship with the innocence, which is going to corrupt the innocence too. Okay, there's going to be, um, like, it's just that's what it does. The corruption breeds the corruption until there is an alchemist who takes the corruption and turns into the correction, and then it stops propagating itself. So that's why it's important to set these boundaries with these types of energies. Um, and you, if I'm talking to a man, like if you have relationship and you trying to like do business or whatever, you go through life and you try to do the right thing, right, in an orderly fashion, and you can encounter somebody who's trying to cheat at the game, who's trying to lie, who's trying to deceive, who's trying to be a bitch face, um, you can pretend and say like, oh, that's just the way they go, or you can say like no and call them on their bullshit, catch them in their lie, bring it up, uh, shine the light on the bullshit that they're carrying, and that will elicit a certain type of reaction, which you're gonna have to then deal with it and alchemize it. But you have confronted the lie, or you have confronted the corrupt, you know, energy. It's usually when you do that they get like really angry, but that energy that they're emitting, that anger, you take it to transmute it, and now it's power. It's your power. And usually you obviously cut the boundary. You in that moment when you alchemize that energy, that corrupt masculine energy, you create a boundary within yourself which does not permit that energy to enter. And that energy no longer has fuel to have so-called good luck on mischievous intentions. They start receiving the bad luck and karma. Okay, this is what happens. But you always obviously give a chance to this type of you know masculine. You give a chance. If they fuck it up, you bring it to attention. They have a choice to admit, let go of their ego, and grow up, in that moment. If they don't, they double down on their bullshit, then you know which direction they went. Always give a chance. Um, let them decide. Let them decide which way they're going to go. Bring it up. Let them decide which way is they're going to go. And when you choose the path of the ego, you may be kind of pissed off about like why did they choose to go that way. First of all, how can how can I not see it, why they're so dumb or whatever, like all these different thoughts that you may have about their choice that makes no sense, because all ego is dysfunction, and that makes no sense at all. But they do it. But you have to, as a man, have to let them destroy themselves. Like you let the ego get what it wants, in basically whatever that may be. But you don't let it pass through. With their lie, they cannot enter into your field of truth. You don't let them enter in the field of truth. And you take away that energy from them just by just confronting bullshit in your life. And it may not be easy as a man to do that, because you see the bullshit, you see the corruption, you say fuck, like I don't want to be participating in that. And so might be difficult for you to say like fuck, I have to change my entire life. I have to be responsible for my food, water, and stuff like that. You may end up making that decision depending on what kind of game you're playing. But you may see the corruption and you see, like, I don't want to be subject to it. Like, for example, I don't want to be subject to it. This is why I don't want to be subject to any kind of system that is corrupt. I I would rather be, the subject to nature and depend on my own intelligence and the people around me to survive and thrive. An independent economy that is based as much as possible on truth. And that's my choice. Now, obviously, not to stray off too much from the subject, also, you may say that there is a point of participating in a matrix. I'm going to get to this because there's this idea that, like, once you're out of the matrix, then you can structure the matrix in a such way, or participate in the matrix by structuring the matrix such way that it becomes conducive for people to evolve. And so basically, like, it's you make the matrix to be a school, not a prison. And the only way you can make the matrix into a school, not a prison, if you yourself out of it. But you kind of accept the fact that you're going to have to create some sort of structure that people are going to live life, and they will experiment which way it goes, and they will get the feedback. If they double down on their ego, then they crash and burn. If they that school still has to be there, but it's structured in a such way that is conducive for the evolution, not an imprisonment. You see what I mean? Like, it's the labyrinth that there is a way out, not the labyrinth that has no way out. And so I think that would be like the highest point of leverage for a man who's out of the matrix to reprogram the matrix by changing the laws, by changing the way it operates, but understanding that, like, when at this point we're probably not going to get rid of matrix, that we have to have that matrix to be more like a conducive for people to evolve and not to degrade, right? It's just basically that's what we're saying. Eventually the matrix is just going to be shrunken to the robotics and hardware production, and no participation in any kind of media or software or mind or information manipulation. Just like the ego is shrinking, the same way that world is shrinking as well. Anyway, sorry, I got straight off from the topic a little bit. Going back, so these are challenges that you may encounter. You may encounter these challenges because you are asking for a higher order of things, less lie, less deceit, stuff like that. And so people may find it difficult to meet that criteria. They want to play the games, they want to play drama, they want to hide, they want to manipulate, they want to do all this, they want to sabotage and stuff like that. But your energy has to set the boundaries for that, and say that this is not the game that I'm playing. If you challenge me on this, I will use this as a challenge, alchemical challenge, and but I won't let you participate it. You see, this is like, it's very important because you're not going all the way and not saying, like, well, I'm not going to have any kind of relationships in my life, fuck people or whatever. That's not healthy either. And on the other side is tolerating and accepting people who are has intent, not like what you intend. Your intent may be resonance, their intent may be drama. So by structuring your life in a way that there is no people, or minimizing those people, right? They're sort of like in the periphery. They're not really, they're in the periphery, and you may still have a contact with them, and if there's any kind of alchemical process that's necessary to do, you do, but they're not in your inner circle. They just naturally fall out. Okay. But it's not that you made them they made a choice. You have to allow people to make a choice and see how they react. And so there's going to be relationships that are like, you know, if you're a man and you are on a path of regaining your power, that bliss feeling, which creates everything, and that's the primordial energy to create anything. If you have that, you are on your throne. If you have that, you can create whatever you want. And if you have that, you will only create something that is based on that energy, which is truth and wisdom, and it's going to be um, producing harmony, because it's based from the state of harmony. It's based from the organ, so it produces something that is organized, and any kind of experience will lead back to it, right? But it's an ego destroying energy, so of course it's going to have the reactions, and it's not going to tolerate uh, corrupt energies. You have to be cool with that also, and of course that includes your own. If the ego is trying to alchemize it, okay. um Face things, of course. I'm not saying you don't avoid things. You face things. You face people that are you know, might be corrupt or whatever. You face it. You face it, the energy. You call them on their bullshit. They get triggered. You transmute that energy, and this way you take away their privilege to manifest something from mischievous energy. And if you've been like empathetic type of man, that may be difficult for you to understand that no, that is the right way, because it seems that not everybody is liking you, and half of the time people are kind of hating you for you just because you're asking for the truth and transparency and clarity and honesty, just by being in your own that clear energy. And people react that way, and that's all right, because if half the people are triggered by it, okay, then and they don't let go of their ego, right? They don't want to they think that that's a position of weakness, which is actually not true. It's just a position of liberation, but it's all right. Like if they think that way or they're not ready, then they're gonna be out of that, right? And that's okay. That's the part of discipline that is totally fine and okay. um this is something that I've been dealing with, and I was thinking like, oh, why do people make that choice, and this is the right way. I mean, it's obviously transparency and truth, clarity. You can see how it leads to freedom and awesomeness, and people afraid of it and they don't want it, and they think that it's out to get them, and or whatever the reason, that they don't believe in it or whatever, you know. um and so yeah, I'll have to say that um some games, which is for example the game of love, which is to do with alchemy, because it is the alchemy is the process of what they call heroes gamos. It's the holy matrimony. It's the merging of the power and love as one. That's why, because there's no power without love, there's no love without power. That's pretty much the message that you discover. Because if there's certain fraction of power that does not have connection with love, it's a corrupt energy, and it feels like that distortion. Okay. Now, I want to say something here. Right, as I was saying, people are going to change, and they're not going to be right. Like, so the people are either going to change in the sense that it happens like in one person, right? Like, if the person decides that, like, okay, all in, because you sometimes you can't play the game unless you're all in. That's the thing with love. You can't have love or truth unless you're all in. You cannot bring your ego into the kingdom of God. It's just not going to happen. And sometimes people try to sneak in their ego into the kingdom of God, and it's just like, does not work. And you, as a man or a woman, have to take care of. As a man, I call it alchemy, which is alchemy takes care of you being in that on your throne of power, and devotion is how I call it, a feminine type of alchemy, which is being on the throne of love. It appears to be so. That's just metaphysical process that I'm observing. That the end result is the same. That the peaceful bliss state, that freedom state, appears to be shared, and it's not, uh, you know, it's not a woman and a man at that center point experiencing it as peace and bliss. At least that's how I see, as how I observe. Okay, it's not like that. You know, at that point, there's this type of equality, sacred equality. In the mind and the body, there's always sacred inequality. So there's the game could happen. Okay, but we're talking about this sacred equality. Okay. Damn, I hope I'm making sense here. Um, right, but the way you arrive there, it appears to be different. Because if you look at, like, for example, a torus field, and if you see that one energy is flowing like this from the up down, and keep on flowing and flowing, flowing, and doing that thing, another energy is flowing up, and so that's the reciprocation energy field. There's like magnetism and electricity, they're all reciprocating. One is flowing like this, another one's flowing like that. And when there is that flow of these energies in the opposite directions, in that moment, because of this flow of these energies in the opposite direction, one flows like this, another flows that, and there's this motion, but because they cancel each other out, there's this stillness as well. So there's this bliss, there is, because it's motion, and there is peace because there's absolute stillness. And this is just metaphysical phenomena that you can observe, and physical phenomena as well. In magnetism, you can see in a toroidal, reciprocating toroidal field, you can see that's happening. And any physicist with two neurons connected will tell you that that's what's going on there. Okay, reciprocating toroidal field. But to boot up that field, it appears that from bottom up is that fire energy, right? It appears that you can boot it up through the fire, or you can boot it up through the water, the falling and rising. And that's the difference between alchemy and devotion. Alchemy is something that is, well, again, these are just words, but you can call whatever you want, the ping and the pong, the bang and the bing, doesn't matter. The point of it all is that the energy is real. It's that, is a metaphysical phenomenon. So what does that mean? It means that by alchemizing through the way of fire, which is courage, which is going in there, facing it, right? Like through the way of that, then there is this release, poof, and then there's the surrender happening. I'll give an example. Like, for example, uh, if you're going to the gym, um, and you pumping the muscle, and it goes into this more and more painful and painful and painful thing, and you focus on it, focus, and you go through it, or like when you stop doing it, then there's this release, and sometimes like you can even have that feeling of total surrender, relaxation, that goes like you start laughing because your legs hurt so much, whatever. But there's this, I don't know if it's a good really analogy, but that's what's going on. There's this courage of going in there where you don't want to go, and then there's, when you go deep enough, there is this breakthrough and there's this surrender. And that's the masculine way of alchemizing. But you end up in exact same state. You end up in this peaceful bliss state. Or what you could do is the opposite, which is to do with like surrender. And if you surrender deep enough, then you will find that you can take on anything also, which the courage emerges. Right? But one approach was masculine, another approach was feminine, but they both can accomplish that union between the power and love. Do you see now that it's important that if you're a man, the consciousness is not gonna let you through the other way. You can try as much as you want, it's just not gonna let you. It's gonna always bring that discomfort to you, and it says like you gotta go in it, you gotta go through it, you gotta go in a alchemical way. And I know that historically people are talking about the alchemist. Alchemist is always depicted some old man with a long beard and, doing the alchemy in the lab. It was nothing to do, of course, with the matter, even though matter is a reflection of the inner, elements. It was about what I'm trying to describe here. It was about this. But it wasn't talked that much about like the devotion side of it and the other side of it, which appears to me that it's very real, and it happens simultaneously as the alchemist goes through his alchemical journey. Right? There's a some feminine going through her devotional journey. It just happens simultaneously at the same time as is going on, because everything consciousness is super lawful like that. But for some reason, for example, Jesus got all the spotlight and Mary did not have that much spotlight. Maybe even got a negative spotlight, but no. But they're equally difficult, but they're accomplished in a different energy, through different energies. Okay? And every time you as a man break through alchemical challenge, there's a woman out there that broke through devotional challenge. Okay? So this is why you don't really need to worry about women like that appears in the matrix, that women are going in the masculine way and all that stuff, all that dysfunction stuff. As long as you do as a man your alchemical process, you don't have to worry. There's going to be a woman somewhere doing a devotional process. And you can look at the matrix and say like, oh, how women are like that. Everything is good. Like, how can I even have a partner, because it's so much dysfunction. You only need one. So don't worry about it. You only need one that is not like that. And that one will find you as you do your alchemical stuff. And from her experience, she's going to find you as she's doing her devotional stuff. Okay. And it appears that it happens automatically. Like, what I'm trying to say is that as I'm doing that between attention and awareness thing, I I will probably going to be leaning towards facing that thing, and so my edge of release is close to the fire, so to speak, right? And for the feminine, is probably going to be more around in the surrender. It's like one is like penetrating, another one is like enveloping, if you will. And I think that just happens naturally. Okay, I talk too much about this. Now we can move on. um Now, in the mind realm, that's where there is a sacred inequality, so that intent can happen. The intent and allowance is required, and I call it magic and obedience. um every time you, as a man, creating a dream from those blissful states and feelings, and you imagine something, you are doing magic. Imagination, magic. Okay, you are basically creating it. But because you go from that harmonious state where you are in union with the feminine also, whatever you're going to dream up, that's going to be the feminine dream also. It's going to be like her dream, right? And all she got to do is to allow this to take place. And what you got to do is you got to paint that dream that is based on that primordial union. So this is why, again, like in this case, even though the end result is the same, it's the dream that is shared, that are mutually enjoyed. The way you go about it is through different means. That's why I separate those two. In order for there to be union, there has to be, the path through adequate path. You can have, you know, you have to, I'm saying. Anyway, right. So I think that's it. That's what I think. That's all I wanted to say about relationships. Um, yeah, and that's, I suppose, that's how you build a healthy life. That you have healthy relationships and not, you know, uh, living in a cave, which is not a healthy life at all. And then I suppose once you have like a strong relationships and good life, then you can, when you have your own base that is strong, you can engage and see what can you do with the matrix itself. But not until you are out of it yourself, because otherwise you're going to get sucked in. At least that's how I see it. Yes, the end goal is to, through alchemy, you kind of leave the matrix, stabilize yourself in the new way of life, have all these healthy relationships that are functional, and then, as a consequence, you may go and say, all right, what can we do with this matrix stuff? Probably by then you'll see that it's already changing, and just a little push, just a little participation in it, and and arranging it in a different way, which is a little bit more healthy, will do. I was considering this very carefully about, like, so are we just like to build a completely different economy and different way of life that is based on harmony? Because because when you live from that freedom, from that 0 point, there's a different life, and you get to get along with people who also live this life. But there's no getting along with the people who are, you tolerate them. Well, it's not, I shouldn't say tolerate, but like there's no connection there. You have a relationship with them because you kind of in tune with the essence of everything, and you can and still enjoy them more like a moving picture, you know uh, as long as you don't look under the hood, everything's all right. And so you can still enjoy these people, but there's no relationship there. You see what I'm trying to say? um, there's no resonance there. You may look at them as a cartoon characters and appreciate them, and it's like, oh, this is fascinating, these are like moving pictures and they do stuff and stuff like that, without more like, the picture without purpose, or kind of, yeah, it's the picture without purpose, right? But if you look at it and you start scanning and analyzing, it's like, oh, that's this dysfunction, that is dysfunction. Then you kind of get lost in it, and it's not necessary. You can just remain aware, um, of just them as a background, moving pictures, doing stuff, and still enjoy that, and not really have any kind of relationship with that. Okay, and that's probably the best contribution that you can have, is to not to be engaged in these matrix relationships. At the same time, appreciate the essence of these people, because they're still, uh, you know are that essence. And that's probably the highest contribution that you can make. And then it appears to be so that you can have matrix, which is obviously the backwards way of living life, but you can structure it in such way that facilitates people uh, living in the right way. There's still some people, may choose to go the ego path, but the feedback is so fast that the lessons are learned very quickly. It doesn't have to extend into years of suffering. The feedback is immediately. People will see, like, karma is immediate, right? Like, if you do something that is ain't right, and you're gonna receive the feedback immediately. The bad luck is just going to come at you like crazy, and you're going to receive the feedback. It's like, oh no, yeah, all right, I gotta let go of this ego thing, because that is ego is not power. And yes, maybe I do want to have a control over my reality, but it's not through ego that I will get a control of my reality, because there is that space from which your dream is mutual to someone else's dream, and whatever that may be. You see, like, there is that role to play that you want to play, um, and someone wants to play the other role, but it's based on harmony and resonance, and not through force. Okay, so yeah, so that's my little yapping about relationships. uh, and it appears that you you can set the boundaries based on how you function in the world, and you let people decide themselves whether they want this or not. Because if you live life transparently and honestly, and this, then somebody who doesn't want to live life like that, it's just not going to be in your field too much. Like, if they uh, continually intending to sabotage, they just, obviously you can't let that happen. You have to set the boundary. And yes, of course, no ego is conscious. I mean, nobody is really at fault when they have it, but there seems to be some intention there that can happen, that happens at the soul level. uh, there is that intention, but for some people sometimes it only turns on when everything is crashing and burning, and so then they consider, and then they become open, or they deal with something that is like mortality, and they realize, oh fuck, that's not worth to go that way, and so then they are open up for uh, for that way, and they're curious about understanding how can I live life happily, have all the things that I want, but without, you know, lies, deceit, manipulations, and so on. You know. All right. So, I think that's it for today. I just wanted to say that when you choose to live in freedom, uh, the challenges do arise, and we have to deal with them. But when they arise, it's important to know that you can't insist on specific. For example, you say like, "Well, I want this person to change," right? I mean, they may even look at you as like, "Who the fuck even you are to decide what's right or wrong?" Because they still live in a belief system where there's just trade-offs and there's nobody right, because everybody's wrong, and they may not be able to see that. But once they go into the right state, then they see that, oh fuck, there is a right thing, um, but they can't see it from there, and so they just see what they see. So they may see you as this or that, or arrogant or whatever, because they can't see that there is totally a right way of living. Anyway, all right, guys. I'll see you next one, and peace out.